Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered about a rocket designer's journey to self-worth? I know I have. And he's got the start of a great last name. So buckle up because today we're going to wake up the inner giant. Boom. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, co-creator of Wake Up with Giants TV, a tribe of giants on Facebook, 12 Journeys Coaching, and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. But
so much more.
So much more. A lot of weird stuff, so we're not going to mention that here. But I'm here with Nick Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls. The reason why we're here, he created this book with the help of some inspiration from a gentleman named Steve Hardison, who created this book, The Ultimate Coach. Man, today's guest is going to be awesome because, like I said, he's got the start of a great last name, and he built upon it. He added a couple of extra, word or letters to it to make it better.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
That's it. Well, I think you forgot to mention the co-host is the co-author of this book. Boom. So we got all kinds of. Yes. Yeah. So go get your copy today on Amazon.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah, dude.
That's awesome. Yeah, and scrolling at the bottom is our website, my12journeys.com.
We have an upcoming webinar scheduled at 3 a.m. Mountain.
Yeah,
because
we get up early. We start early.
There are giants across the world that are like, I am not getting up at 2 a.m. to watch your webinar. So I scheduled it for 3 a.m. our time so that you can get up at 2 p.m. your time.
Get an extra hour of sleep.
Watch for that on Facebook. So grab that. If you are overseas in India, Australia, New Zealand, Bali, any of those areas, and you want to watch, even the UK, we've got it scheduled for you. And so it'll run live, I think, on May 7th at 3 a.m. Mountain. So plug it in your calendar. And if you need that link, just reach out. We'll get it to you.
Well, that's awesome. Do we have any other great news?
I think that's it. We got the Tortoise's Hair is being edited as we speak. And we are working on the layout right now and book design. So it's coming along nicely. We got the background images in. It's beautiful. So I think you guys are going to.
Your anticipated second book.
It's coming out. Yeah, it's a beautiful book.
I mean, you've read more books than that, but they don't know that yet.
They don't know that yet, but now they do.
Nick has billions that he wrote in like third grade, and they're still coming. So don't worry.
Yeah, there's more to come. So yeah, let's dive in, man. We got a crazy cool guest. We've got Chris Morrison on the line. So joining us in office, Chris Morrison, whose journey from a top-level designer at Boeing to a transformative figure in personal recovery is nothing short of inspiring. At 19, Chris was inspired by the first flight of Spaceship One, leading him to a career with scaled composites and the Spaceship Two program. In 2013, Chris began his personal evolution, embracing his true worth and the power of higher guidance. Today, he's a leader not just in aerospace, but in fostering global youth consciousness through his book, Today I Choose to Be Me, and the Being Kids group. Get ready to dive into Chris Morrison's remarkable journey of innovation and self-discovery. Let's get started. Chris, welcome to the show, man.
Man, what you did with that bio for sure is way, way better than what I came up with. So, can I get that copy, man?
Yeah, dude, I'll send that over to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I think people think I've got this memorized, and I don't, man. I've got a teleprompter up, and I'm going to tell on myself a little bit.
Yeah.
So no,
we got
to have our tools. And, why make things more difficult than they need to be when we've got all these great tools in front of us and we can, any little cheat codes that we have in the world, let's use them. So
let's do it. Let's dive into the brain of a scientist, man. Let's let's really go for it here. Tell us about you, you know, going back in time here. There was probably a time that you weren't Chris Morrison as we know you today, and that you thought you were somebody else, that you were conditioned maybe to think you were somebody else and believed that deeply and had some awakening. Can you speak to that?
Oh man, kicking it off deep right off the bat. I love it. So let's see here. You know what I call my unconscious document, right? The words that people, you know, scripted on me and over me and to me from just the earliest moments, right? The two things that come up um, when I was a kid, 12 years old, sitting at my dad's funeral, my adoptive dad's funeral. Somebody reaches over and it's just this faceless blob, and they go, Chris, you gotta be brave, man. You gotta be strong. You gotta be there for your mom, your brother, and your sister. You're the man of the house now. You gotta take care of them. You know, so 12-year-old kid that just lost his dad doesn't have any concept of what being a man is, what taking care of people is, and so I got stuck in that. Uh, what TV, you know, in the late 80s, early 90s portrayed of, you know, what a man is, right? Your Rambos, your Arnold Schwarzeneggers, your, I was a little late for the John Waynes, but still, you know, that type of mentality really, really was the life of, especially having had lived in Montana for a good portion of time. Like, there's just this belief, right? Men are, uh, scary. Men are bold, bold and loud and aggressive, and that really became just the hallmark of who I was from even going back even farther. There's a point where I just remember being in. I got the nickname Jaws, right? Because I was violent as a little kid, because that's where I grew up, right? There's violence in the household, and you start living out of that. Uh, right? You start living out of what you see, and then somebody says, "Oh, you are that," and you take that on as your personality. You take that on as who you are, and so those two, uh, those are two of the kind of defining things that just I were scripted over me. One, I've got to take care of everybody, and two, you're an angry, violent person, and those became part of my document that I lived out of forever. So.
Well, let's play with this a little bit, because you've engineered, or you've worked in engineering. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of really fun, cool, crazy things, my man. Like I sent over at 19 years old. I was it was basically a high school dropout watching Spaceship One. I'd been working as a machinist. I came out of a vocational high school, and was working as a machinist through that. And I see that it was called Black Skies. I think it was the documentary, and I was like, oh man, I would love to work for someplace like that someday. All right.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there. I can remember the exact spot that I'm standing at in the building that I was working in, and everybody just kind of laughs. So like, yeah, sure. We know guys from Princeton and Cambridge and stuff like that tried to apply there, and they never got in. So roll it forward 3 years, I think 2 or 3 years. I'm building one of the largest machines in the world, and the only other company in the world that had one was a company that made Spaceship One. So just start communicating back and forth, right? Hey, have you seen this problem, man? I don't know how to do this. And after a couple of months, the guy's like, "Hey, man, do you want a job here?" I was just like, "Holy, like." How
it's
like
okay on our show to drop the bombs here, so we're not worried about getting canceled. But
fair enough. All right, now we're full authentic Chris.
Yep.
So just like, holy shit, like here I am. I'm going to go work for the company that I thought it was going to take me 20, 30 years to get to.
Yeah.
And just the power of that creation at 19 years old. not understanding that that's what it was, right? And you have
Yep.
no concept because you have nobody that's talking about this. There's nobody in your circle that's really giving you that insight of like, man, you can do these things, you can create these things if you so choose. And um so I end up, me, my pit bull, my little Mazda 3, driving to the Mojave Desert, where I got to go and be one of the tool designers, making all the tooling and stuff like that for the Spaceship Two program. And I was out there for learning from the pioneers of composite aircraft, the very first people to uh, the very first people to make aircraft out of that type of material and stuff like that. And so it was just
Yeah. Well,
wild, right?
that was a setup. So I just set you up because we're going to use that knowledge that you have to dive into your life a little bit and lay the foundation for people, because you have an incredible story, an engineering mind, and you know the value of engineering and what goes into it and why it's so essential to engineer things properly. And you look at the engineering, if we go back into your life, right? You thought you were something. So I'm going to pull this back into that. And you know what you're saying when you speak from the view of engineering, that the engineering that was placed on you or put into you, right, was created a footprint, right? Created a foundation for you to be who you thought you were in your life. And there was probably some point that you started wondering, is that true? Is that really me? And you had to re-engineer, right? Had to go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and recreate this individual that we know today. Even in the face of adversity of people saying, look, dude, you could go to Princeton or Harvard and maybe you'll get that job. Even overcoming that idea to think, oh, maybe they're right. Maybe that's true. Maybe I should listen to them. So can you walk me through a little bit of a process of self-engineering here and the importance of it?
That's a great construct. I haven't thought about it directly in that way of just, what are we, you know, if you're, whenever you're creating, whatever it is that you're creating, the thing that's coming through is just like, a blueprint or a drawing when you're laying it out. And what came to me is I always, you put that first pass down, right? For me, I make a drawing.
Yeah.
I made a lot of drawings. And you look through it. And you hand it over to a friend, and they look through it, and they're like, here's all these things, right? That you might want to touch up on and look at.
Yeah.
And then you go, and it inevitably, as soon as you like that's the final rev, every single time you hit print, as soon as you hit print, you're like, oh crap, there's something. Every single time. And it just kind of reminds me that there's always a deeper process. There's always something to be looked at and worked on and shined up. But for me, like there's just those foundational aspects that comes back to that statement for me, right? Like I am worthy. If I can sit and live with, I am worthy, I can actually believe that I'm going to put this together in a complete and healthy way. So does that kind of get into what you're asking on?
Dude, you are opening a can of worms, man. It's the beauty of this. Not only is it helpful, it's everything. If a person goes to create, let's say you go to print, right? You go to create, and you've got this insecurity of I am unworthy of this creation, but you print anyway, right? That flaw shows up on the paper. That flaw shows up in the reality. And so that it's essential to go back in and to also hit it. No matter how many times you go over it, there's always something to look at. Now, this is different from perfection. The idea of perfection is that I have to get it right before I hit send. And there's a concept by Nobel Prize winner Herbert Simon that is called satisficing that we teach about. And it satisfies the need and sufficient for the task, and it's good enough. And there is a point where it has to be good enough. Otherwise, Chris, as an engineer, you could over perfect this thing, right? And so
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. People sitting in it for months, years and years. And
yeah,
there's so many times, especially as with that mindset, man, where people will sit and they I mean, I'll just speak for myself. Like I've sat for months just looking. Okay, no, there's this little. Is that a dot or a decimal or And you sit there and you mess with it and you mess with it and mess with it and you're looking for perfection, right?
yeah,
And you're researching and you're looking and you're seeking knowledge, seeking how is the best way to go about this. And yeah, sometimes you just got to send. Sometimes it's as good as you're going to get for where you're at in that moment, for as much as you possibly know, and you just
yeah,
have to get it out there and get from the thinking aspect to the into action, right? Get into action on some of this stuff. And so um that's been a big part of this last couple of months of just like stop researching, right? Stop. We can all, like, there's many, the people that are in the like mindset communities and stuff like that. Every conversation you could stack another 2 or 3 books on the
yeah,
stacks of all the things that we should read to learn the
yeah,
things. And it's just like, all right, or I can start getting into creation. I can start like
yeah.
actually making impact in my life. So
And that right there, the idea of worthiness, going back into that of I am good enough, I am worthy of this. It goes into an inner engineering ourselves first before we hit send. And sometimes we spend so much time perfecting that inner self that we never hit send. So we tend to think we're never good enough, or there's one more flaw that before I go to the world, before I take my creation to the world, I've got to get myself just right. If people could see my behind the scenes, Chris, they would shit themselves. They would be like, what, dude? You seem to have it all together. Well, there are parts of me that I think I have together, but for the most part, I'm shooting the gun or pushing print on the computer as I'm doing my inner work. It's there's no such thing as flawlessness when it comes to this work, because that idea gets us stuck. What there is a sense of I am already valuable enough. I am good enough. And that enoughness is enough to get us into creation. And I'd love your spin on this. Like, as from your point of view and what how essential is that, or is it unnecessary? Am I completely off base? I hope you'll prove
say
me
it again.
wrong.
We had a little lag there. So say it again, sir. The last little
Well,
sentence.
it must not have wanted to come out that way. So I'll do my best here. So there seems to be some tech issues, and that's usually a good sign, right? It means we're going to have a killer show, right? And it's a metaphor for life. But the idea here of doing that inner work, and we spend so much time looking at our flaws and trying to perfect those flaws before we launch and before we get something out there, right? And we spend all that time there, and we get stuck in perfecting ourselves. And when we feel good enough according to our own ideals, which we never measure up to until we get into the space of acceptance, that is, then we find ourselves judging ourselves and keeping ourselves small, and therefore not launching our projects.
Yeah.
There was a different way of saying it, but maybe you can play off of that.
Yeah, no, going back to being working in some of these crazy experimental spaces that I did. There was times where it's just like, we have every last little calculation done, and it was like, nope. Stamp the red stamp on the side of the aircraft, hit experimentally runs the relay, man. And some of and there's some wild mishaps, right? Like some very and sometimes sometimes tragic mishaps, but sometimes, but it was still just, hmm. There's a, sorry, just came up in my mind, just some of the stuff that happened at scale with people, there was lots of life there because they took it a little too light sometimes, but also just, but yeah, there was a lot of times where it was just like, this is as good as we know at this point in time. And so we've got to, we've just, and as like, there's so many times where we could have just sat stuck and sitting in committee, this person wants this person wants that, and I think that we can divide ourselves in our head like that, right? There's so much committee in our head of like, oh, it needs to be on this, and how about we polish up that, and should the font be this color, and you know, and just and getting it out in the world is the only way for us to really get solid feedback, real experience, right? And so there's so much times that we how did April say it the other day? Rob the world of our gifts because we are so stuck on it not being good enough, or or being scared that we're being scared that other people are going to reject us because it's above, below, where they think that that should be, right? And so
Yeah, or we might not know how to get to that point, so we just don't do. When Nick before the book even was a thought, Steve Hardison gave Nick a phone call. Nick took a phone call from Steve Hardison, and Nick, metaphorically speaking, got put on Steve Hardison's shoulder, and Steve Hardison stood up and showed him a different perspective, a different view, a different idea of what's possible for Nick because of what he knew was possible for him, for Steve Hardison. If you've ever watched, it's on YouTube. If those of you that are watching, go Google TBOLIT NFL, TBOLIT NFL, and watch it. He demonstrates with Chris Doris, goes up and shakes the ever living shit out of Chris Doris on stage, and wakes him up to his possibility. Do you know who you are? And if you even knew who I was, you would never ask me that question. Just shakes him. Go watch it. Anybody that's watching this, because this is exactly it. You could stay stuck in your stuckness, in your smallness, when truly you're a giant already. You just have this block, this view that you just you can't see. And if you start into action, it's amazing what happens in the universe. Is that things happen that wouldn't have happened otherwise if there wasn't that spark of movement. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why it is that way, but it's that way. You start stepping, you start doing, you start being. Now do it, do something. And that's where that satisficing comes. Do something, move forward. Now, in engineering with Boeing and things like that, you might have to get it a little bit more right because of somebody could potentially die. But for the most part in life, I'm not going to say always, you're not going to die. Start stepping forward. You're going to learn from the mistakes. You're going to learn from the quote unquote failures, and you're going to grow. There you go. It's
there you
often
go.
not either. It's both.
Hugh's comment right there really strikes home for me, right? Doing the next right indicated thing, right? That's a big saying in recovery, right? So I got into recovery in 2013, and that's one of those things. I have this mantra, right? I have all faith through gratitude and doing the next right indicated thing that my life will be okay, right? And I said that. I mean, I had so many different things going on, from kids being sick in the hospital all the time, from friends overdosing, suicide, mental health crisis in my family, just time and time again. And so I had that mantra just deep in my soul, and it was just the next thing, just what is the smallest incremental step that I can just do right now so that I can keep moving forward, that I don't sit here stuck and not you know I mean, there's days where it's just like, okay, take the bed cover off, okay, take the sheet off. Like those were as small as the steps were to just keep in motion, keep in, and I didn't have any concept of being, or this is such a new concept to me. There's just those things in recovery that kept on coming, and then talking, and then the other aspect of that was just being really, really real with where I was. The wildest thing though for me, looking back now, right? This is something that's been really the two most powerful creations I've had, before beginning of this year. Going to Skilled Composites, speaking that into existence, and creating a life of just okay. Every day having a mantra that, yes, it got me through the day. Every day it got me up, and I completed the day, and I was, to the best of my ability, of service to my family and my community. But my life was really mediocre, man. It was just okay for a long, long time. And I am so done with that creation, right? Right now the creation is, my life is exceptional. My life is joy. My life is, the one I'm trying to learn and lean into is abundance. That's the next it's the next one. I'm really trying to lean into that edge. So
yeah, I like it. I want to hit on this, going back to what you're saying here, is this question: is perfection flawless? And if you look at the word, by definition, perfection is not flawless. Perfection is perfecere, from the Latin perfecere, to perform and to complete. And so when you perform something and you finish it, that by definition is perfection. And flawlessness is something else we added. As humans, we put the flawlessness on it, that this construct of we need to do it exactly right. Otherwise, there's this question of worthiness. And when you come to the creation, like you did with your own mind, we're only working with a small amount of consciousness at a time. 5% of what we do is, as far as thinking goes, is conscious. Only 5% of what we do is original. When it comes to our habits, about 40% of our habits are automated. And so we tend to just repeat over and over what we've always done. And so your life put enough, the new life of exceptional will be done by small conscious steps, repeated, becoming the complexity of your life over time, and then supported and becoming your new automations. Because that's the way the brain works. The way it's engineered is it doesn't give a shit whether it's useful or not useful for you. Whatever you repeatedly do is what it's going to automate. And so the only thing that gets repeated or automated is what you repeatedly speak or act on. And so when we look at perfection and flawlessness, this isn't about perfection. This is about get out of bed and pull off the covers and put your shoes on or your shorts on or whatever and get to work. That's what we're talking about. So this new life of exceptional isn't grand strides. Sometimes it might be a really big leap, quantum leap. For the most of us, it's small repeated steps, right? And maybe I'm wrong. I say right, but Chris, prove me wrong.
No, man. I mean, from now it's the things that are on my that even just in this last couple of weeks I've added into restructured my document, and it's just I am instant action, right? I don't allow myself to sit there and do the you know mental masturbation of just trying to sit there and figure everything out. It's just like I'm gonna do this, right? Like there's whatever thing comes into flow, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? Like I had a thought the other day of something to share with Steve and Amy, and right, and I shared it like literally the next day, and I got a really really loving you know deal back from Amy, and it's just like and it's now I can I could have just sat there and mulled over and played with it and molded it and spent the next 2-3 weeks to find out like, oh no, that's not something that's as a possibility needs to shift. It needs to be quite a bit different. And it's like instead of it took 2 or 3 days, right? Instead of 2 or 3 weeks or 2 or 3 months or years, right? How many times have we had something that we could have just gotten a little bit of clarity on that by getting that out in days, freed up probably a ton of time for me, freed up a ton of mental energy, and now I can take that in a way that's actually constructive creation.
Dude, I think we got a new shirt now. It's hold on a minute, I'll be out in a minute, I'm in the middle of some mental masturbation. So,
I mean, normally we have pretty simple ones, like I am the ultimate giant, that kind of
or giant, but we do that. The idea we get stuck in that playing with it in mind, so to speak, which is a great metaphor, because and then we don't get into real action around it where we're actually doing something in the world. And so getting into action is big, and there can be a lot of fears that come up, a lot of old stories, a lot of judgments about and justifications about why you're not the one to do it and why you're ill-equipped. And I love the work of Nassim Nicholas Taleb, the mathematician who talks about anti-fragility and stepping into the unknown. And he says that the most urgent and noble human pursuit is to step into the unknown with incomplete information. That as empirical decision makers, it's our highest and most noble pursuit is to step into the unknown. And that's what you're doing. And so, and it requires getting out there. It's like, there's a point when you're talking about the rockets, you have to test it. You have to get out there, and there could be some real world costs to it. But there's no other way to find out. Thoughts on that?
I just
And thank you for the deliberateness of your responses, man. I just see you pause. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, it hits home because it's just like there's that duality for me of like the real world, right, where I have been part of fatal accidents, not me personally, but people that are in my circle, and so that there's a level. It's like we need to at least do a certain bare minimum aspect, and I'm just kind of looking for the metaphor in that aspect of like we just can't throw ourselves off the cliff, right? There are certain parameters that we need to make sure that we're some basic housekeeping stuff that we need to make sure that we're doing, but also I love leaning into that edge of just the unknown, right? Like I mean, there's so much right now for me that is unknown, that it is just and to be boldly living in that space of I have no clue how certain aspects of my life are going to turn out, right? One of the stepping into, so people that were at the Scottsdale event saw Eric with his daughter, letting his daughter take up, not take up, he gave his daughter the time to speak, and all of the creation that has come from then, right? And he kind of got into action. The next week we have a kids call, and now just seeing that as a father, right? I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of people that have this really, really, amazing mindset, and they're going to do a meeting on how to bring this for their kids and bring this for their young people and stuff like that. And so getting into that and sitting there for the first couple of weeks, and then when Eric was like, man, I just don't have bandwidth for this. And being on the call, I was like, well, I can at least open the Zoom call for you. Like I can figure that out. Right. Like that's, just trying to be of service where I can. And to all of a sudden it's like, no, Chris, this is now your thing, man. Like you're leading the beach movement. And it's like, holy shit. Okay. All right. Well, let's see what that looks like. And yeah. It's that oh shit moments of like, when somebody's like, when Eric turned around, he's like, no, man, you're leading it. I'm like, that was not the agreement, sir.
Yeah.
As a father who's just trying to learn, and you've got all of these like rock star, superstar people that are affecting tens of thousands of kids around the world, and he's like, go for it, bud.
Yeah. Dude,
So,
let's go off track here a little bit, because you hit on abundance. Okay. And I'd love to go down that path with you here today. And I want to tie it into your world, because you are doing it. You look at the rocket ships as the materials that you use to create the rocket ship, the composites. You didn't have to go off planet with those, right? They were already here. And the laws of thermodynamics say that energy is not created or destroyed. It's only transformed from one form to another. So engineers somewhere thought, let's mix this. Let's maybe do a little titration here. Let's make this chemical. Let's see what this does. And they came up with this material called a composite. Now, the composites were always there. Richard Paul Evans calls it the chaos. That chaos is the mine of creation. And I love that you pulled from the chaos, you mined the chaos to create these composites. And now here what you're doing is you're surrounded by abundance. So abundance isn't something this is Wayne Dyer. It's not something you acquire. It's something you tune into. And so it's already there. So it'd be like saying, you know what, I'm going to invent water so that fish can swim in it. Right?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? It's like, I'm going to invent oxygen. Guys, I'm going to invent it. No, dude, it's already here. So what we do as humans is we transform things. We take them from the form they're in, and then we transform them into what we have in mind. And there's no limit to what we can transform with. The only limitations that come in are the ones that we put on it. And so we come in and say, I can't do that. So we don't. But it's not because the materials weren't there or the people or the opportunities. It's simply our mind said, I can't do that. So we believed it, and therefore we didn't. And so when you're looking at the being movement, with the kids is, okay, I don't have the materials. Is that true? Where I've yet to develop the mindset that allows me to transform the materials that already exist around me into what I have in mind, right? I'm taking something that doesn't yet exist, and I'm creating it from the materials, the opportunities, the people, the resources that surround me. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
No, and that definitely was the resonation that it's like I from things like going to Birmingham, right? Like, there was, for me, a couple people had asked, like, hey, you're gonna go to Birmingham, and I was just like, absolutely not. There's just there's no possibility for me to do that. And May 25th, I'll be there in the room with all of the people from around the world, and with just a couple of little different shifts. People have helped me create that, right? And it's and it is kind of your guys' metaphor of being being set on the shoulder of giants, right? Like some giants have lifted me up and let me see this as a possibility, and like you're talking about, like, now I see all of these things as a possibility, that there is abundance around me, and it's just now fully tapping into and understanding how to create, craft, engineer, right?
Yeah.
What's the right ratio of this epoxy versus that resin versus this weave, right? Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, like, you know, so you know, I mean, what's I won't get too much into the jargon of it, but like, you know,
yeah,
there's so much that goes into, you know, little itty bitty bits of what is the angle that some of the stuff comes in at, and it's like, now can I sit there and just take all those pieces as a engineers are hilarious. Yeah, we're
yeah.
My,
yeah,
my
You
mind,
can tell.
I'm sorry.
it's funny.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
my mind doesn't work that way. Like my mind is like, no, we'll just do this and see what happens. You know, like I'm the
Like a
exact
boom.
opposite.
Yeah,
I'm the worst engineer. Boeing, anybody, don't hire me to be an engineer ever, because they would
yeah.
just be like duct tape and bubble gum, and we'll just see how that one goes the first round. You know, so
You know what?
hearing you work through this and do
Yeah,
it and make sense of like your world where you're at versus the world you want to design and create. It's
yeah.
actually it's pretty interesting diving into an engineer brain. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, and it is, but I see the materials on it. Like, it's like if I'm walking in right now, I see the materials. I know that this is a possibility, right?
mm,
And it's just
yeah,
being so, like, I call myself a being baby, right? Because I really just got shifted into this mindset since January, right?
yeah. Wow.
Since the ultimate,
Yeah,
the ultimate coach, or the ultimate experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
yep.
know, and I have had a lot of different, like, I mean, I have 10 years in recovery of diving into inner dialogue with, like, this, the sitting or talking with Gabby at the ultimate experience was that linchpin of really unlocking. I am worthy.
Yeah,
I am worthy, not because I provide for my kids, not because I take care of my mom or my sister, not because I, provide for, now my ex-wife. Like, there's none. It's the I. And
yeah,
so, like, she opened that door into the closet of, like, here's all of the materials for the next phase of your life, right?
yeah,
And so it's that alchemy of putting all this stuff together and figuring out now, and but I do see it, man. It's just like, I think, I listened to your podcast from the Ultimate Coach from a couple of years ago, I think it was now, and I feel like I'm in that same spot
yeah,
where you were at that point in time, where it's just like, there's so many things to go and create and do and figure out and navigate around, right? And it's just, just getting into those, initial couple of steps and stuff like that. So, but yeah, as a possibility, I have all faith, right? Like, again, right, I can get back to this mantra of, I have all faith
mm,
that doing the next right indicated thing is going to lead me to a life of abundance.
yeah. Well, and the idea, I think we get stuck on that, the idea of abundance being, something we go get, or I'll bring more of that into my life. And it's like, how can you bring more earth into your life? How are you going to pull
Um,
more air into your world? How are you going to pull more money into your world if money exists? It just exists, right? So it's tuning into it and using it and creating ways to transform it from where it's at. I think that the one of my favorite stories is the monk. We shared this in past episodes of the monk, and he said to the other monks, I'm going to build an ashram, and they laughed and they're like, "What are you talking about? Where are you going to get the money?" And he goes, "Well, wherever it is." And he ended up doing it, creating it, and the idea there is that everything we need is already here. What gets in the way isn't the abundance. It's not the possibility. It's our view of the possibility. When we do the 12 journeys, when we go through our workshops and our webinars, we really dive into that because that's what gets in the way. We stick with the roots initially just because our programming is so influential that it does the doing. And we think we're being authentic, and it's our programming that's being quote unquote authentic because it knows how to pretend to be that. But when you really get into being, it's beyond that. Like, your power is beyond anything you think you are. You are already equipped with it. So if we strip people down to their bare self, right? Kind of like Steve Hardison the other day in his post, and Matt Evans when they were doing naked gardening, right? They're like bearing it all. right?
They sent me that in a message, man, and that was not what I am prepared to see, man.
There's no context either, so you're like, I don't know if I should. How do I respond to this?
I've seen more of those too than I care to see. Let's put it that way.
But when you strip
that
people
was good.
down like that, you know, you really realize that you're not nothing, you're everything. And if we can strip off everything we've been engineered to be and start, you know, really stepping in like you're doing, stepping into creating ourselves, it's often not in big leaps, it's in the small steps, it's in titration, right? As you know, in chemistry, if you introduce too much chemical, you blow yourself up, right? So in titration, it's sometimes you just got to take really small steps and introduce small degrees, and over time that solidifies and becomes automated. And so, like, yeah, go ahead.
It didn't happen if there's not a picture, buddy.
Yeah,
Say
there
that
is. Yeah, there is. Don't tempt you. There is a picture.
But just to kind of to go with what you're saying there, Nick. This is really awesome because like this is I was on a call Friday, talking with Gabby, and this is what you're talking about. This is exactly what she was kind of poking me at, right? She's like, you've created, here's the tree, and you're kind of up in the limbs, jumping from I am father, I am a creator, I am the leader of this, I'm doing, and it's like it's more of, the still in the kind of monkey mindset of jumping around and stuff like that, not kind of flowing down into getting in, staying in the spot of all the things I am being and moving down into I am. Right? Moving down into that I am, the universe. I am creator. I am, and just back to I am. And for me, like and then the kind of going deeper into that, it was just joy.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
When you experience Steve, my meditation teacher, like she is love, right? And you just come in contact with DT, and it's just like love. That's all. That's a word that you can take to describe some of these people. And we love you, baby buns, Steve. Really, and it's just like for me, the word that resonates, that actually causes me to have vibration in my chest is joy, right? And it's joy. And how do I bring joy into now all of these I am statements that I have? And so it's just I love that this you're basically iterating exactly what this conversation just in the last couple of days, right? Is just this refinement process going from all of the different possibilities to, if I move from all of the possibilities just to I am.
Yeah.
Well, I am I am abundance is just as easy to say as I am a father is just as easy, and to now know that joy is where I create from. I'm getting very, very succinct on well, let's create from joy. Where is there more joy in my life, and how can I lean into that, because that's where the abundance will flow from.
Yeah. And I think, Chris, even beyond that, I'm just having this nudge is the abundance will flow from, the abundance is already flowing, as a, I think of a pen, the old fountain pens that you would put ink in and then the ink would flow out of it. And whatever the creator or the holder of that pen wants to flow onto that paper, the ink would flow through it. But it was the nature of putting pen to paper that created that flow into the paper. And in your world, the ink is always there. The paper is always there. What's needed, and what I'm hearing here, is that as soon as Chris puts pen to paper, then it will automatically do what it's designed to do. Right?
That's that spark
there
that
was
I was talking about.
Yeah, there's no creation of that. You didn't go create the ink. You didn't create the pen. You didn't create the paper. You put your hand on the pen and you put it to paper, and then stuff flowed out of it. And so, for any of us, it comes back to the person holding the pen, right? If you tell yourself, I am unworthy, and then you start writing with that, what flows out of that pen is everything that you think you are. Not what that potential that pen is, not the ink, not the paper. It's whatever you think you are flows onto that paper. And how many of us tell ourselves, who am I to do great things? Who am I to do something special? Who am I to stand out? Is it Marianne Williamson, right? Who are you not to, she says. You're playing small serves nobody. And so when you put pen to paper, well, you're just tapping into the universe that's already there, but who's putting the pen to the paper? Is it you as the powerful Chris that you are at your core, or is it you as the Chris as who you think you should be because you're worried about the judgments of others, right? And this may be for others that are watching too, but who's showing up to hold the pen is as essential as the pen and the paper, right?
At the beginning, Nick, you talked about Jaws here talked about, right, who he was back then. He had the nickname Jaws. So Jaws became, the 19-year-old dropout, the violent, tough, rugged, stoic, unemotional, pit bull owning, unworthy, needing to prove himself, the man, right? And this might be a little out of the box versus our normal flow, Nick. But if I could ask Chris, if you don't mind, who are you now? Do you know your document? Will you read your document or share your document because that's who you were, or who you thought you were, or who society said you should be. Do you mind sharing your document now?
I am that is. I am the creator of my universe. My creative, let's see here. My creative vibration is so high that the universe aligns both people and opportunities to my purpose. I am the father of Asher and Oliver. I am joy. That's the part I have memorized right now.
Yeah, beautiful.
And you know what's amazing too is that's how I experience you. Look, this was created for Steve Hardison, but I'm wearing the shirt because I'm my giant. I'm already a giant. I'm the ultimate creator in my world. It's me. You, Chris Morrison, are that for you. Steve is that for him. He helps us see. He helped Nick see. Nick helped me see that in me. I see that in you, and you're seeing it in you, and look what's happening in your world because you're seeing that in you. It's amazing and beautiful, brother.
As a demonstration too, to say that's what I have memorized right now is a perfect demonstration of the process of being. It's that you are stepping into and anchoring at your core this new way of being, and really not even putting on anything. It's essentially returning to, right? So as a declaration, I'm returning to these things. I'm returning to that Chris Morrison that is this. And part of it's memorized, but at your core, it's uncovering what's already there. It's taking off the layers of, okay, that means I'm no longer this. I'm going to go throw that in the closet or take it to the DI. That's where we donate clothes up here, or the Goodwill, right? I'm going to take that and donate it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that resonated most clearly with me is Chris Smith. Now, and I'm probably going to butcher this, so please bear with me. Is really it's coming to, it's not adding this another thing. It's not going and learning and doing another thing. It's, what do I need to take away to return to who I am?
Mm.
And I know it's not verbatim, but like the essence of it is there. It's just, what do I have to remove? What have I added on so that I can truly be the refined essence that I always have been? And I've just cluttered up and mucked up and muddy and had, and maybe not just me, right? People have said things, done things, and we have then taken those on and held on to those things, and then repeated them into ourselves and created from those. So removing that, right? Removing jaws, removing, that my self-worth is only based upon what I provide for others, and it's scary because I actually have some of these things like tattooed across my body. And when I say my unconscious document, I literally have these things written across my body. Like I literally have it tattooed across my body, and so it's like remove, I'm never going to remove that because it's a beautiful reminder of like how I created myself for 40 years. But now, I get to take that pin back. I love the analogy because I say that a lot, like taking the pin back from all of the others that I have allowed to write that and go forth into the world and take from that. And that's kind of really what I see as my part in the kids movement, is making sure that the kids hold on to their pin, that it never gets taken from them, that we don't allow people to write over our children. And that is purpose.
Yeah. I like that because that is the ripple that will go out. That is what will be experienced in the world. That will affect lives in ways you don't know. Right. So, and you don't know the ripple that they're going to make in somebody else's life either. It's, even being able to share today, the people that are watching today, you're making an impact right here, right now with them, and they're going to likely go out and share this with somebody else, right? We can't see the end ripple. We don't know how far it extends out. So is there, if there was one thing that you wanted to share on the show, we like to ask, if there's one question you could be asked, and it might be a question or a thought that comes up that you wish somebody would just ask you this, or you could just talk about this, what would that be?
I think we've kind of hit on it, man. It's just what does that shift look like? What does that shift look like for how do I get out of my own way on some of that stuff? And so that's, there's people that are, kind of started showing up that start talking about this. It's just where do I get into that? I don't want to create the wrong version, but it's just like, how do I shift into that tap into that abundance and knowing that it's there, right? And it's just right. And I've had so many different. There's been so many refinements over the past just 3 months, man. 3 months.
Yeah.
And I've gone from, having to be right in my relationship, having to be right to now, not being able to have conversations with my kids and being able to talk with them about where they're at, so it's like, there's just been so many amazing shifts, knowing full well knowing, right? All of these things are possible, and now it's just shifting into living it,
I love
being
it.
it.
Yeah. I'm seeing it, man. Since January, I mean, you look at the quick shifts that can happen, and now it's anchoring it in. They say it takes 18 to 254 days to create a habit. And to put that in context, 254 days is about 9 months. It's about as long as it takes to create a baby, right? And people don't stick with their goals long enough to make them automated. And so when you're starting something new, just stick with it, repeat it, keep growing it. Over time, it's going to become automated, habituated. It becomes your core and essence, and it starts directing your life. And at any point in our lives, we can change that. So it doesn't matter if you're 70 years old or if you're 7, right? And like you say, getting ahead of it, being able to demonstrate to these kids, hold on to your pen. You're the one that determines, right? Is powerful, because for the rest of their lives, they're going to remember that. That's a huge impact. So thank you for who you're being, and thanks for sharing your wisdom today. Ryan, did you have some thoughts that you want to share?
Yeah, last thing is too is you got put in charge of the being movement for kids. Just making a suggestion or two, and they're like, "Hey, well, that sounds like you're equipped, ready." Who better than an engineer that's learning about being to help, and that's a dad, right? To start moving forward that message. We referred to this as the Kids Book of Being, which is pretty interesting, and so we'll make sure that you get a copy of that, the Giants and the Smalls, because sometimes you just we wrote Nick. I say we. Nick wrote this. I wasn't there. I wish I was. I feel like I'm always with Nick, but he wrote this for his kids, but also for himself. I mean, truly, we're all just a bunch of adult kids that are learning about being, and to take off all of the things that the world said we should be or have to be, or and go changing that to what we can be, we could be. Um, we get to design our world how we want, and sometimes that takes 40, 50, 60 years to figure out, and sometimes we can take what we've learned and now implement it to our kids so they don't have to take that long, that they can see um, what's already there and start creating their world how they want it to be. And so anyway, I'm just grateful. I didn't know how this was going to go. You took part of Chris Smith's name, and you took part of my name, and we came up with a beautiful baby named Chris Morrison. She's one of the most beautiful humans on the planet. So I appreciate you, my man. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll take you both on as adoptive dads. I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
That's a little weird, man. You're a big baby.
Call me daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Call me daddy.
Oh man. Just just two things. We do have a teen panel. Vicky Abadesco is leading here in at about an hour. So if you have teens, if you have people that are interested in, she's got just a couple of she's got 4 phenomenal teens that are going to be on there. And then I'm also working on getting my kids book out there in the world. And just any yeah, so keep your eyes out for that. And I'm really excited to help kids pin their document.
That's
So
awesome. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, for those that are watching, thank you for being a part of this. As you know, you guys make the show, so your comments are always welcome. And thank you for sharing this with your world. We're inching up here, and this is kind of a big thing on YouTube. Our subscriber count is going up. Our view count is going up. It's consistently doing that, and we could use more help getting it exposure. And so if you love this show and that you love the message, share Chris's message with somebody that you know, and go click the subscribe button on our channel, because we have hundreds of shows like this that will inspire you to step into your greatness. And so we want you to be a part of that. If you are in the UK, Australia, India, New Zealand, you're overseas and you don't want to get up at 2 a.m. to watch a webinar, reach out to me about the webinar that's coming up on May 7th, 2024. For those that are going to watch this in the future, this will be way expired by then. But May 7th, 2024 at 3 a.m. Mountain, we are launching a webinar that is the first 6 journeys of the 12 journeys. So it's the inner work, and it will be profound. It'll change your life. We have a couple of gifts for you for being on there. One is our AI applications, the Giant GPT, that will allow you to coach yourself from our 12 journeys framework. And then the other is a gift into our community. So we waive the membership fee for listening in on that. So thanks for being a part of this, Chris. Thanks for your message today. For everybody that's watching, we're grateful for you. Go make it a giant day, and we will see you in the next episode.
Love you too.